What is Pornhub's, kind of status on, verifying, like, say you upload a video, right? How do they, and I'm assuming that they don't really, but how do they verify that you're not uploading content that includes minors, that includes women that may have been sex trafficked or whatever?
So now they have a little bit more of a identification system in place, and somebody who's more of an expert on Pornhub itself could probably speak to that. But Nicholas Kristof wrote about this. It was about a year ago, and all of a sudden the credit card companies were canceling Pornhub, and it was a big deal. So they did change their ways a little bit on the production end of their content because they had to, right?
Mm-hmm. But conservative cancel culture can be a good thing.
Except ironically, I think a lot of that came from the left, right?
Yeah.
We had been talking about this for years, and Nicholas Kristof comes to the rescue in the New York Times, and then all of a sudden, now we care. Now the companies care, right?
Yeah. Now MasterCard wants to stop minors from appearing on a porn site.
Right. But look, I think, it did, that was a really important moment because it did kind of show that the seedy underbelly of these porn sites was happening, that these aren't like family friendly. I mean, it's so funny how the porn industry actually tries to market themselves. They're trying to act like they're like a family friendly industry. It's insane. And look, I really think that was an important moment towards where we're at now, which is, we have a left-right consensus on, okay, so if we want age verification for performers, then obviously we should have age verification for those who are watching it as well, right? Because it's not appropriate for kids under the age of 18. It's not appropriate for adults either. Yeah, do the Joe Biden whisper thing. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, it's something we want to prevent.
Yeah, you're just gonna mumble into the mic. Yeah. do your Joe Biden impersonation. So I want to talk about the state regulation because this has been something I've been watching very closely, and it's been very cool to see. You have a number of states, Louisiana, Utah, Virginia, states that you might not expect. Like Virginia was a pretty big surprise for me, basically saying that these companies have to make it so that you have to verify the age of the person, accessing that website, that they can't be under the age of 18. And in response, a lot of these companies, Pornhub in particular, have just instead of doing that, they've just decided to not provide service at all.
Right.
In those states. So I want to hear more particulars about what the bills do, maybe the differences between the different things that they use in different states. And what the effect of that has been.
Sure. So first of all, I don't want to exaggerate the effect of these bills. They could be a lot stronger. They have carve-outs for, say, search engines, big tech companies. I mean, there's issues that we at APP certainly don't like, that we'd like to improve. But, let's take a win for what it is. We had 7 states pass this legislation, and obviously it is having a real effect when you see Pornhub leaving these states.
What are the other ones aside from the ones that I mentioned?
Utah, Virginia, I'm going to do this off the top of my head, Louisiana, Mississippi, Montana.
It's 5.
Okay, hold on. Did I say Virginia already?
Yes.
Oh, man. Texas. That was the one we were really active in.
Yeah, 6.
And there's one more, and it's not coming to my head.
That's all right. Keep going.
But I should have written that down. But no, I think the thing to understand here is that there's a lot of politics at play. So there are these bills. There's 2 ways to do age verification effectively. You can do it via the device, the actual phone itself, or you could do it via requiring the content providers to have their own age verification system. And the device manufacturers really don't want to be liable for this stuff, and they're kind of annoyed by it. And so you have some really great groups out there, and we've endorsed these bills too, but really great groups like the National Center on Sexual Exploitation that have pushed these device filter bills. And basically, your phone has the ability to have a filter on it. The devices just have it turned off, and it's really hard to turn on. And so these bills would basically say, hey, that's got to be on. And if not, you face liability, device manufacturer. And so in some of these states like Montana, this actually happened there. What's happening is that because the tech companies don't want the liability, they're willing to allow the age verification on the porn sites. And so I think you're going to see this more and more next year, where states want to pass age verification on the porn sites to prevent the other companies from having to have that liability. Now, I will say, just intuitively, I think it makes sense to hold the porn sites liable. It probably makes sense to do both, because some of these porn sites are overseas. They're going to be really hard to sue or deal with another way, unless DOJ like seizes their domain name. And so it probably makes sense to incur as much liability as possible to protect kids. But anyway, so this has been part of what's been the rise of this, because some of these states just do not want the device filters bill. But even in the age verification bills, you still have, again, Google is powerful. And we all know that Google is, where a lot of searches for porn originate. And then they go to these offsites. Google doesn't want to face liability here, and they haven't so far. And then you also have just generic social media companies. X, Twitter, right, is a haven for pornography. No liability yet, even though minors use that site. So I think there's we still need to go back to the drawing board and strengthen these bills. But that being said, I mean, if you said 5 years ago, are you even going to be able to have these bills passed? Most people would have thought no way, because it's so institutionally difficult to do, despite the fact that so many people support it.
Yeah, I think that's what's been so fascinating about it to me, is like, you had, especially on what is now called X, a lot of these dialogues about how harmful porn was, and you had a lot of these young guys saying ban porn, and everyone's kind of like, that'll never happen,
right?
And to see some real progress is super, super fascinating to me. Tell me more about the actual act of verification, on these porn sites. Is this, similar to like tobacco and alcohol, where you just check a box and you can lie? What does this look like in those different states?
So this has been something that I actually didn't know while we were working on this legislation, and now I know, and I'm really excited about. So you have like the law in Louisiana. Louisiana actually has a state ID. And so it's a public-private partnership where they're basically working with the government. And that does put a lot of people at dis-ease, and I understand that. But, so the way we were talking about it originally, and it was still popular when we talked about it this way, was all you got to do is put your ID in. You'll have like a third-party encrypted thing, and it'll be fine. Well, I've actually learned, I talked to a company that does this stuff. And basically, right now, your phone and your computer knows exactly how old you are. It knows it because of all the data points, all, consumer research panels, they know how old you are. And so basically, or I shouldn't say panels, consumer research data. And so right now, there's companies out there with 99.9% certainty can verify age based on a device. So Pornhub or whoever could pay them. And I was told it's something like 30 to 50 cents a verification. And then they could for sure, make sure that kids aren't accessing their site. Now, they're not interested in doing that. But now we're talking about this as if it's like a regulation, not a restriction on speech. It's basically saying, look, if you want to be in this porn, industry, you are going to have to make sure that kids aren't accessing your site. And you can do that. And here's a way to do it. You're just going to have to pay some money. And I think it totally changes the ballgame. And so what will end up happening if this is the standard, where you have this in all 50 states, you won't even know. Let's say, I'm not trying to sell this that, this is good, adults will be able to access. But if I were in a state, in Virginia, right? And if Virginia, the porn sites partnered with a company like this, I would access porn on my phone, and I wouldn't even see an age verification link. It would be, we are able to, associate this phone with an age. Okay, it's safe. We can distribute it to them. So there's the idea that there's even a little bit of a concern over free speech here is actually pretty laughable, unless you're making the argument that kids have a free speech right to accessing pornography.
Yeah. Is that the standard in many of the states, or is it just Louisiana?
So Louisiana is the only one that has the actual explicit state ID system. The rest of the states kind of left it up to the porn sites. And that's partly why you're seeing Pornhub, I think, take advantage, but they're just leaving the state. They're like, we don't know what to do. You didn't tell us. And you actually saw the Democrat majority leader in the Senate in Virginia publicly post, hey, Youngkin was supposed to figure this out in rulemaking, and now Pornhub doesn't know what to do. That's so upsetting. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
come on. But ultimately, this stuff is out there. The porn sites know it's out there because they have to do this in other countries. And so this is really just them trying to, drag us along and frankly lie to us.
Do we have any data yet that, shows how much porn use has dropped in these states as a result of, both the regulation and the companies pulling out?
I don't have that in front of me, obviously, but yes, I mean, you saw, people made a big deal of the search for VPNs spiking in Louisiana the day after the law. Yeah, it spiked that day, and then it went down.
Yeah.
But no, search for porn. Look, this is going to have a real effect on adults looking for this stuff as well. That's just how it's going to be. But I think ultimately, if we get a national law, if we get to where, because right now only like Pornhub and a couple other sites have pulled out of these states. Porn is still readily available in Virginia. It's still readily available. We need stronger enforcement mechanisms like a private right of action in these bills to be able to really go after these companies. But once we get all this in place, and I think we will in the next couple of years, I think you're going to see a huge a decrease of porn use among not just kids, but American citizens.